One question that was asked is, what advice would you give to aspiring writers? And I have a few basic things, but one answer that you've probably heard if you're interested in writing is the thing that you need to do is write. And I'm sorry to disappoint you if you wanted to hear something new, but any writing workshop I've been to, there's always somebody who's a successful writer whose writing is their career. That's how they make money full time, and they say the same thing: you have to write. So it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you are a successful writer who's living the dream. You have to write. The same as if you say, well, I want to be a classical pianist. Okay, then you have to play piano. Now that sounds really simple and obvious, but the thing is that if you're going to get good and if you're going to be successful, then you simply have to do the thing that you are wanting to do. So if you wanted to learn how to be a great pianist, then you start playing the piano. Now you might dabble around on the keys at first, and it might take a little time before you realize that yeah, it's fun to come up with ideas and see how different notes sound together and make some okay music, but at some point you just decide, I guess I should learn how to play the piano correctly. So I'm going to take some classes. I'm going to get with a tutor or a teacher or someone that can just help me. I'm going to read some books. I'm going to study some of the great classical pianists to see what they did and what their styles are and what is it that makes them so great. The same with writing or with anything. If you want to be a great plumber, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to practice it. You're going to have to learn how to do it right, and you're going to have to look at experts and see how they're doing it, so you can follow their pattern. And eventually, after you learn how other experts are doing it, you eventually develop your own pattern and your own style, and you decide, this is how I like to do it. I've learned the basics. I've learned the rules. I've learned how to do it the way certain experts do it, and now this is my own style that I've come up with. And of course, it's the same with writing. It's the same with anything you do. If you want to write, it's very common for people to think, oh, yeah, writing, it's simple. You just sit down and start writing whatever comes into your head. Yet at the same time, there's lots of other people who would say, yeah, I could never write a book. Well, they're both wrong. You can write a book. Whether you can write it well depends on how badly you want to write. If you really want to write, you'll keep writing and you'll keep getting better. So, the key is to write. It's easier to steer a moving car. If you're parked, you can't steer. You can't go any direction. You can't get anything done because all you're doing is parked. All you're doing is parking your car, and you're not moving. If you're moving, you might take some wrong turns, but you can steer yourself back in the right direction, and you can get expert advice from people who know how to steer properly and who are expert drivers, and you can learn their patterns, and you can get better and better and better. The same as if somebody wanted to be a classical pianist, and they start off and, you're going to be bad when you start. You're not going to sound good when you first start learning to play the piano. So don't expect to conquer it in your first month of lessons. But keep at it, keep going. And then after about a year, people will say to you, when you first started, I couldn't stand to hear you play. But now, I can. You don't stink nearly as bad as when you first started. And after a couple of years, they'll say, your piano playing, it's almost pleasant now. I almost want to hear it. And after 5 years, people will say, wow, you are really good. You're really good. And maybe after 10 years or less, people will say, you know what, you are my favorite piano player. I love hearing you play. Well, how did you go from nothing to being somebody's favorite piano player because you kept playing piano until you got good. It's the same way you write. It's the same way you get good at writing. You keep writing, and you keep learning how to be better at it from the people who know how to be better at it, and you'll learn the tricks, the techniques, all the things you need to know to get really good and stay really good. Okay, another tip that I would give to you, a couple of tips that I learned from an author, Travis Thrasher, who's written several books that are in different kind of genres. He mostly writes some thrillers, it's like supernatural thrillers, but he's also written romance and action adventure, and he wrote a cool crime drama called Gun Lake that I really loved. But he said in a little workshop that I attended, the best advice I can give to you is whatever story project you're working on right now, finish it. Because that's going to do more for you as a writer than anything else. And I really needed to hear that because I constantly have tons and tons of great creative ideas and new story ideas. And what happened to me for years and years is I would be in the middle of writing a great story and I would come up with another great idea for another great story, and I'd get drawn and led away to that. Writers don't really need to depend on a muse. We don't wait for inspiration to just fall on us and then like, oh, that's brilliant, I'll just write all that, and there, it's done in a night. That typically doesn't happen. And if you try and make that happen or expect for that to happen, what's going to happen is you're just going to be led from one idea to another. Whatever is the most appealing at the time just leads you away, like it led me away. What you need to do is simply finish the story you're working on, get it done, and then once it's done, you will have produced something, and you're free to go on to produce something else. And in the end, you haven't just been wasting your time, you've created something. The other thing that Travis Thrasher said at that workshop is, in terms of what idea should you start with? He said, think of the one idea that is the best idea you've got. The one that if you couldn't write anything else, get anything else done, this is the one idea that you really want to complete. Do that. Do that first. So take your absolute best idea that you're most passionate about and work on that. Because again, if you're like me, you might have tons and tons of great ideas. But if you narrow it down to just one or two that you really, really want to live or die on, do that. And once that's done, then you move to the second most important, most exciting project idea that you've got. And you do that. And you keep going so that you're putting all your effort and energy into the ideas that you care most about. And it'll show in your writing. Last tip I would give you is about criticism. You're going to get criticism, especially as you're starting out. And even when you're very successful, you're going to get criticism. Not everybody's going to like what you do, and they shouldn't. People who want to read Stephen King are not the same people that are necessarily going to want to read Danielle Steele. They're just not. Why would everybody want to read what you write? They're not. So some people are going to criticize you no matter how successful you become, and they're just going to say, yeah, I just hate that writer. So there's lots of other people who will love what you write, and they'll love how you write it once you're good, once you've written enough that you're really good, and people can bear to read what you write. Keep writing, but in terms of criticism, I just want to pass this advice on to you about what to do with it, because most of us have been given this incorrect information that we need to learn to accept criticism, and that's not exactly true. You do not need to learn how to accept criticism, but you do need to learn how to use criticism. This is what I mean. If somebody comes up to you and says, yeah, your comedy story isn't funny, and I really hate your bow tie. Well, unless you're doing public speaking, it doesn't matter what they said about your bow tie. You know, they hate your bow tie. So what? You're a writer, not a tailor. You're not a model. If you look like an idiot wearing a bow tie, who cares? That has nothing to do with your writing that you're producing. But if your comedy story isn't funny, that's important information and feedback to get from somebody. So that is criticism you can use. He gave you 2 criticisms. One is meaningless. Who cares about the bow tie? But the other you can use. Now, how that works in real life with writing is, say I give my story to 5 people, and one of them comes back to me and says, yeah, your hero is really arrogant and obnoxious, and I cannot stand him. I hate your hero. You need to change that. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess that sounds like that's a problem that I need to fix. And then the other 4 people who read it come back and go, I love your hero. He is so cool and funny. Do I need to pay attention to the criticism that I got from the person who said, you know, they don't like my hero because he's arrogant and obnoxious? Well, I don't dismiss it and just disregard it as meaningless, but if I don't think that's a concern, and other people don't think it's a concern, then it's not necessarily something I need to worry about. Now, if 2 people both come and tell me the same thing and say, yeah, your character's really obnoxious and arrogant, then I should pay good attention to that because it's probably true. At the same time, as I'm taking that information that I can use, I decide how to use it. Because maybe my hero is obnoxious and arrogant. That doesn't mean that that's a problem. James Bond is pretty obnoxious and arrogant, but it worked. So use the criticism that you get and figure out how to use it to improve your story, because you're creating a product for people, and you want that product to be appealing. You want it to be something people love to read and enjoy. So if there are a bunch of people that would love to read and enjoy about an arrogant, obnoxious hero, then great, that'll work for a lot of people, and some people will hate it. But if it works for you and it works for a lot of people, and you have a good product that you can present to people, then that's good. But if you send out this story to 5 people and all 5 come back and tell you, I hate that obnoxious jerk, you probably need to rethink what you're trying to give people, because you've got 5 readers who can't stand what you wrote. So that's good feedback, good information that you can use. So those are my tips. I hope that's helpful for you, especially if you're starting out in writing. But what are some of your tips? What are some of the best writing tips that you've heard or that you've given out to other people? And what are some of the things that have helped you the most? Post your comments and let me know.